Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of VNext. I am your host, Mike Walker, and you're listening to episode 21 Get Aboard the taXchain. In this episode, we're going to be talking with Siemens and Henkle about all their great work around taxation of supply chain and logistics. Now, like with all of our episodes, make sure you rate, subscribe, 5 stars all the way around, all that great stuff. It definitely helps us understand what's working and what's not working for you. So definitely leave a comment. So with that, let's get into it. Both Siemens and Henkle, based out of Germany, where they're going to talk about the taXchain ecosystem that's going to help modernize the world of tax. But before we get into that, let's introduce everyone. And so, what I'd like to do is I'd like to call on each one of you, and I want you to tell me a few things. I want you to, say your name, which company you're with, and your role both at that company, but also your role in this initiative. And then, as an extra added spice to this, what I'd also like you to do is maybe tell us something unique about you, maybe something that people know, or maybe something that people don't know. And so I'm going to start first, ladies first. I'm going to start with Olga. Go ahead and tell us your name, role, what you're doing on taXchain, and something unique about you.
So my name is Olga Shatna. I'm working at Siemens, and my role in this project is project manager. And something unique about me, so I'd like to windsurf, but now we couldn't surf, maybe later.
Nice. Very good. Thank you, Olga. Welcome to the podcast. Andre, you're next.
Yeah, hello. I'm Andre Ruppert, and I'm also working for Siemens in the controlling and finance tax department. And I'm more or less responsible for the incubation of tax digital technologies within Siemens. And so we are the ones who check the markets for new technologies and ideas and bring them at the end into implementation when they are useful for our business. So what's special or unique is my team. So we, the Siemens team, are all motivated and very curious explorers of the digital tax transformation.
Andre, both you from Siemens and the folks from Hinkle, I've never seen people more excited about tax.
Yeah.
You guys are really into this. I love it.
Maybe it's more the technology.
So I'm going in order in which I see everybody. So next up is Prashanta.
Yep. So hi, my name is Prashanta Sharkar. I work for Henkle as a blockchain engineer, a part of digital business. And in this project, I'm the technical advisor from the Henkle side. And one of the thing which I want to share with everyone that I really like desert safari. I did many times when I was in Dubai, so that's a good experience, I would say. Yep.
Nice. Welcome. All right. Next, Robert.
Yeah, my name is Robert Risse. I'm in charge of tax and trade in the company. So I'm heading these two functions. And therefore, we have a broad variation of topics we have to deal with. And we are really proud, similar with Siemens, and therefore we're working closely together, that we are really try to digitize taxes and customs trade, as we call it. And we try to convert ourselves in digital natives.
Nice, as we all are trying to do during these trying times. Great, and you are with Henkle, correct?
Henkle, yeah, Henkle,
Perfect.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we were explicit about that. All right, last but not least, Thomas.
Thomas, you are muted.
All right, we'll give him one more second, and then the show must go on. Thomas, you still there?
Hi, my name is
there
Thomas.
We are.
Yeah, hey. My name is Thomas. I'm working at the Digitalization Enablement Center at Siemens. And in this project, I'm a consultant for the blockchain architecture and the enterprise environment around it.
Perfect. Thank you, Thomas. And thanks everyone for joining us. So let's get into this thing called taXchain. And let's start with, how it all started. And so, there are so many different processes in the tax world, customs and trade, that require modernization. There are, technology, obviously has a role to play. And with some of the new emerging technologies like blockchain, which we'll talk more about today, has significant potential to digitize in a much more rapid fashion the tax and trade environment. This industry, like some other industries, is heavily paper-based. And so with paper, what we run into is, a lot of management around those physical papers. We have to have people that manage that paper, but also what they have to do is they have to verify data. This is a very manual process. It takes a lot of time. And so anytime where we can start to digitize these things, it makes things a lot easier. But most importantly, it saves us time and money. Now, to add another layer of complexity is you're dealing with also a global ecosystem of multiple governments that have their own rules. Everyone taxes a little bit different. And so having a way to avoid the manual processes and go more digital is obviously much, much more ideal. Now, the goal of taXchain is to actually set up an industry-wide ecosystem that anyone can join in the area of tax and customs. So suppliers, authorities for data and information exchange, all on one platform using this technology called blockchain. Now, keep in mind, when we say blockchain, we're also talking about many other technologies that help enable that as well, and which we'll get into more here in a little bit. Their first use case, because you have to start somewhere. The tax space is a very, very large space. There's lots of different permutations, lots of different directions you can go. And as most of us know, as technologists and professionals, we know that the big bang approach just doesn't work, where you try to do everything at once and just deploy it. Very rarely, and I don't even think I've seen that work in my career. So this team from Siemens and Henkle have partnered with Microsoft and other organizations to essentially build a roadmap. And they had to start somewhere. And the first place that they're starting is around long-term supplier declarations. And with this digital solution, you should be able to see the potential to digitize trade data management in terms of the overall efficiency, the robustness and control, which will provide information on the origin of the material that is needed to decide if the product is eligible for free trade agreement or not. And so, obviously that's a lot. And for the novices out there that may not have to deal with or even understand tax. So Robert, maybe help us understand in terms of the challenges. What do you think are the largest challenges in your industry, in the tax and trade industry? And what do you think is necessary to overcome them? And and color this in the light of what you're doing with tax.
Yeah, you see, we currently talking about a lot of tax and custom changes in general. We have seen that the so-called base erosion profit shifting initiative by the OECD is now taking place. One of the consequences was the tax reform 2017-18 in the US. And therefore, we have a lot of changes to deal with. In addition, we have, based on this, as you said before, paperwork. We have a lot of documentation to do. And therefore, we're looking to each other, and this is with the Siemens colleagues, in terms of what we can digitize in our business, how to make our processes easier. We started in Henkle with business process management, the BPMN, And with this, we try to make it visible how processes are running and what type of documentation we need. And as I said before, we are very close to Siemens in terms of developing digital solutions. And therefore, we put together and say, okay, why not to step into this digi world and take the challenge? And take the challenge means not only to talk about a lot of organizations, workshops, whatever, talking about blockchain and say, yeah, we will make it, but nobody really can execute this now. And therefore, we are really proud to take this challenge to look for the solution.
And Andre, so from a Siemens perspective, you're in a very similar role to Robert, and it'd be great to understand from your perspective what your additional thoughts are here as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. You both already said it. So currently we have a huge mixture of paperwork and of emails and Excel up and downloads between many entities, as well within the company Siemens and also with external suppliers as well. And in addition, there are a lot of process interfaces within our different ERP systems. So we have like a double-digit number of ERP systems in Germany, only in Germany. And so we have to talk first about data harmonization, right? So master data harmonization if we want to go digital. And there, long-term supplier declarations are a great example, because what we really have to ensure there, we have to avoid to approach the same supplier with the same product from every entity 100 times, because we do not have the same master data in our system. So we should avoid to ask the supplier for LTSDs for the same material as more than once, right? Right. And this makes it really transparent that we have to work on our databases first. This is the first challenge we have. The second challenge is then really to manage the digital change, hand in hand with the people who are working at the end with that solution on their daily business. And we have to focus on that solutions which makes their life easier and more comfortable. Because only if this happens, they understand what we are doing and they will use it at the end. And we would like to bring them away doing all these repetitive and stupid data work all the day. We want to concentrate them on their really professional work. And last but not least, I would say we have the laws. The laws tends to change faster and become more and more complex. And we have more and more, like we have it now at the COVID time, we have suddenly we have different situations and different laws, and we have to be flexible to handle that at the end, especially here in the European community.
Yeah, so that's really fascinating, Andre. And what I think about here, and we've been working together, so I have an idea of what the answer to this question is. But for many of the listeners, they might not understand. So essentially, for this type of solution, is this only for Siemens and Henkle? Is this only for people that live in Germany or do business in Germany or Europe? Is this only for supply chain? What's the scope of this initiative?
The scope of the initiative is a global one, because as you're talking about long-term supplier declaration, that's all about that you be shipping goods, deliver goods over the border. So this means we need these electronic passports for our goods, for customs authorities. And with the long-term supplier declaration, there is a lot of documentation and content for this passport. So you have to exchange this documentation to create passports to, for instance, get the passport in the form that this is tax or trade exempt, customs exempt in this example. So this means that's a global effort. And with blockchain, we know we have to partner. We need partners. And therefore, Siemens and Henkle both like to open this platform. Yeah, we transform our processes to this platform and ask everybody else to participate in this, because this is a collaboration platform in which we do customs documentation.
Yes.
That's great, and it's no small feat. And another thing that comes to mind that people might be thinking and asking is, blockchain, one of its qualities that it's known for is proving authenticity of the data. And in this case, proving authenticity of the goods that are going across border. Is fraud a challenge in this particular industry, and does this help with those particular, establishing provenance of goods across borders?
Definitely. For instance, one of the significant topic is the so-called country of origin. Country of origin determines how the goods passports looks like. And you might see there are a lot of people, let me assume I'm not blaming China, but you're getting the material from China and this is not qualifying for European production. What happens very often, the ship is stopping in Africa, and then the country of origin is changed to an African country. And then it qualifies for free trade agreements, for instance. So this can be avoided if you were to implement blockchain, because then this is unchangeable that the country of origin is China.
Yeah, perfect. And Andre, obviously these types of initiatives are no small feat. How did you get started with all this? How did you assemble this group of people together, get them excited, and what were some of those first initial steps?
Well, we have first of all established across company tax and customs community for a long time, right before digitalization. Yeah? But in this group, we started to talk about digitalization, of course. And so we shared, in the beginning, we shared our best practices with each others, and then we started to collaborate on several topics and different solutions, not only blockchain stuff, also other things like RPA or chatbots, solutions, stuff like this. And what we found out is that everybody has similar needs, and that means it makes no sense that everybody reinvents the wheel all the time. So we started to share our experiences. And Henkle was one of these partners in that community. Correct me if I'm wrong, Robert. So we started then on our Siemens side. We really started, Robert said it already, with country of origin documents. Implementing a solution there and getting into conversation then with Henkle. And Henkle said at the end, well, we are really elaborating LTSD processes, and which is a process which is upfront, the COO, the country of origin. Yeah, and then we started to collaborate a common solution with the two companies, and found out very quick that it makes no sense to do it with both companies, and needs to or want to extend it.
Yeah, makes total sense. And Robert, from your side, what drove the collaboration from a Henkle perspective?
It's very easy. If you look to the entire environment we are in terms of digitization, a lot of advisory firms, consulting firms try to make it, but what they are lacking of the data. We as a corporate, we have all the data available, and this means the ideas we now going to implement, not only blockchain initiatives, other initiatives which are on the Azure cloud perspective, we are really able to use company data to get the result. So this means we are leaving the field of blah, blah, blah. There is an opportunity. We are executing this, and this makes the difference. And that's really cool with Siemens, because we both talking the same language to this extent, and we are going to use our company data to execute something.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting stuff. And, we talked about the problem broadly for your particular industry. Diving deeper into taXchain itself, Andre, in your own words, what value or problems does taXchain solve for Siemens specifically?
I mean, on the first look, when you look at it, as I said already, it's really to replace all the manual process stuff and reduce the number of interfaces between entities and definitely ensure regulatory compliance and control. But beyond this, we want really to gain deeper insights into and control, for example, with data analytics. And we also want to improve the utilization of free trade agreements. And for example, we aim to make real-time reporting also to authorities as well. Yeah. So these are the problems we solve beyond that technology.
And I'm wondering, Andre, was there any sort of event or outside of optimizing the process and maybe some cost optimization, were there big glaring holes, issues, cost overruns that really drove this for Siemens?
More or less, it's a question of process speed, and this improves process speed significantly. And more speed means needs better data quality on the one hand side. So you have to take care about this, what we should do here. Yeah, definitely. But on the other hand side, really having the time to concentrate on business tasks. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say then is by optimizing this process, making it go faster, you can take a lot of those manual processes that your resources were working on to just get things through the system and put them on tasks that were much more valuable for the company.
Exactly. When you, for example, think about the processes itself, they often request upstream and cascade it downstream along the supply chain, right? Yeah. And you have a lot of players there which really benefit then from the blockchain solution. Yeah? Because quality is better, compliance is ensured, and the speed is higher.
And Robert, from your perspective, from a Henkle perspective, same question, but also, how is this solution different than solutions that you've built in the past? Because I can't imagine that you guys haven't thought about trying to optimize this before. What's unique about taXchain now versus the things that you guys have done in the past?
Yeah, the other solution, for instance, is with the Adobe. And you get a PDF and you fill in something and you get the PDF back. But this is not a platform. Yeah, you're sending by email or whatever, you're sending the PDFs around. And this means that is much of work. We have on our shared service center in Bratislava, in Slovakia, in Europe, we have 20 people day in, day out filling in these supplier declarations. Yeah, each day, 20 people. So this means if you like to optimize this, then you need this platform. You need this platform to put everything in and not filling paper. Even if you use PDF, Adobe technology, you're filling in paper. And we try to make it paperless and shift everything through. And this means that's the benefit. That's really the benefit, to get a collaborative platform together, which is absolutely secured and speed up the process.
So what I'm hearing you say is the previous technology was bespoke. It was very narrow in its implementation. Right, wrong, or indifferent that may be, but it was very much, instead of paper-based, it was digital paper-based. So you had similar problems that you would have with individual pieces of paper. What the shift here with taXchain is to build a digital ecosystem that is inclusive and is open with a set of APIs that you can build on top of. So you're providing a platform for the industry to add functionality and capability as needed onto that ecosystem, bringing the industry together. Did I hear that right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So speaking of these ecosystems, to be successful, many of these ecosystems, they're not, completely, private for one company. Typically, they are open and they support, many different types of connections into them, and they have a variety of different levels of security and permissioning, etc. So initially, for both Siemens and Henkle, you guys started this as a closed network to get this off the ground. But from what I'm hearing you say is really the goal here is to create a open, collaborative platform to share this data. So, Robert, for you, long term, kind of paint the picture of what this looks like as a open ecosystem. Who are some of the participants? How are they interacting? What value are they getting out of it? What additional capabilities are they able to bring? So maybe Robert, we'll start with you, and then Andre, I'll let you chime in as well.
Yeah, so it's always the same. If you have an open ecosystem, everybody is asking themselves, hey, what is in for me? Is this secured? Are my competitors seeing my data in whatever? And, the blockchain technology really fits the purpose in terms of, Siemens and Henkle. We are not competitive to each other from the product portfolio, but it might be that even Siemens or Henkle, there are some competitors in, or we really sourcing some materials from in a competitive environment. And then, blockchain ensures that the competitors or our suppliers are not able to see each other in terms of they're not able to see the other set of facts and data which are in the blockchain on the platform. And this makes it so collaborative. You can ensure that the process flow itself is ensured, and that everybody has its own privacy and its own security in data and whatever meant to be. And I think this makes the platform so powerful that a lot of partners can participate, because we can guarantee with the technology that all other things are ensured as it were before, as you're doing this manually. I think that's really the cool item to consider here.
Gotcha. And Andre, would you add anything to that?
No, honestly, there's nothing much to add what Robert says, but the clear vision is really to get a standardized platform, which we can use over the industries, and not only for LTSD, but as well for other tax and customs or supply chain management processes.
Yeah, and so speaking of that, Andre, you guys started with long-term supplier declarations. Why did you start there? And maybe what do you envision? And maybe it's not finalized yet, but what do you envision as maybe the next set of capabilities that would be brought onto taXchain?
Well, why we started there was quite simple, because, as I said before, we had a mad process for country of origin documents, and getting then into conversation with Henkle, we said, okay, we have to improve something. Let's start one step ahead with LTSD first. And the nice thing with that is, LTSD process is, you can overlook that. You can really, it's easy, you can work with it, and you can prove the technology as well as learning about blockchain solutions. That was more or less the reason why we choose this one.
Gotcha. And as far as taXchain as an ecosystem itself, obviously, there are lots of different solutions out there. But what do you think really differentiates taXchain from other things that are out there that may be doing the same or similar things? This one's to you, Robert.
Yeah. So I guess the difference is that as I'm looking around, what is going on in the other ecosystems. Take the ecosystem, for instance, in Singapore with the big Haber, or in Amsterdam or in Rotterdam. What they try to do is they like to establish standards, yeah, the definitions of how such a system is running is set, and this and that. So I think Henkel and Siemens Henkle, we really try not only to give the functionality on the platform, in the further run, we have to set our standards in terms of, as we use this platform, for instance, for other topics, for sales and use tax in the US, for instance, yeah, you have these exemption certificates in sales tax we are broadly using there. And then the question is, today is paperwork made in shared service center. Why not to use this taXchain for sales taxes, for the exemption certificates? In Henkel in US, we have roughly 20,000 each year. You can use it blockchain, and it's not, then, you know, it's less and less paperwork, and this happened easily. And this means there's so many other topics in which we have the technology and setting standards, definitions, what should function, and that's a powerful tool. And you know, other organizations, as for instance, Maersk and IBM, they like to did it. Yeah, they were not so successful because, you know, Maersk said you have to engage us, and a lot of people did not know and did not like this in the end. And therefore, we like to create an open platform for many, many users, which are not feeling bounded by, yeah.
And so, Robert, you're talking about the TradeLens consortium?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to purchase only goods from Siemens or Henkel, I think this should be an open platform.
So the key nuggets, what I'm hearing from you, Robert, is this is a extensible ecosystem that can support potentially any tax scenario, and it's not controlled by any one entity, but it's controlled by the community itself. Did I get that right?
Yes, absolutely. And the community is going to set the technology, you know, using with the Microsoft topics, and the standards in terms of how definition would look like. And this is a key issue, because let's assume everybody in the world are setting up these platforms. Yeah, then you have to deal with a lot of platforms, with a lot of definitions, a lot of things, and you have a scattered landscape, and you are not really using the benefits of the technology. And therefore, you know, it should be open.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking of openness, the supply chain globally, you know, the 800-pound gorilla, as they say, in the room, COVID-19. You know, we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and our supply chains have been dramatically impacted. From, you know, a lot of the folks I talk to around these types of digitization projects, surprisingly, they've accelerated their digitization efforts because of COVID. For taXchain, how has COVID-19 affected your guys' approach and direction to its implementation? And Robert, why don't you go ahead and comment on that one as well?
Yeah, first of all, you know, we learn how to go digital because, you know, this collaboration in teams shows this perfectly. And believe me, I'm personally now for 3 months, 12 weeks in home office. And, you know, my day is more intense as I were in office, because I have less travel time to go to the office. I have less meetings with blocking me away and whatever. So I think I'm working fine. And this means technology is really the enabler for many, many things. And as we collaborate here with Siemens colleagues and with Microsoft colleagues, this was, although we have the home office ban or whatever somebody call it, we are really successful because we are really more efficient and effective in conducting what we have to do. Yeah.
Right. And Andre, from your side, how has taXchain, you know, how do you think that'll influence the post-COVID-19 world? You know, is this going to help with our supply chain issues? And if so, how do you think this will help based on the unique characteristics of the global pandemic?
Hard to say, but I can only talk about our team, but this influences us very positive.
No pressure, Andre.
So hard to say.
It's all up to you.
So I can only speak about us and say this gave us the time to concentrate on our topics. Really, it's really mad to say this because COVID-19 is more negative than positive, but for our project it was kind of positive to get concentrated on the topics and to get rid of all the other things that Robert mentioned. But I'm not a prophet. I cannot. I cannot.
You're right. I hear that all the time from other clients that not only are they wildly more productive, but also there's been much more emphasis on that taking some of those current projects that might have been, delayed or moving slower than anticipated, and this whole thing has sped all those initiatives up. So Olga, from a project management perspective, when we think about this journey with blockchain, we often think about it in the major stages of its life cycle. Starting with envisioning where you don't know what you don't know, but you kind of a germ of an idea of what this looks like, to a formation period where you've kicked the tires, you've envisioned something, you've created a prototype perhaps. You've got some initial buy-in, but now it's time to get serious about this ecosystem and really put much more meat on the bones as far as what this looks like, and come out of that with something that you can push into incubation, where you can do controlled rollouts, and further refine the platform to get to its most stable point and kind of a steady state operational mode. Olga, from your perspective, what stage are you guys at now?
We are clear now at incubation stage. So if we just heard Andre and Robert telling us everything, every detail about how it happened and how it was during envisioning and formation, where we ideated opportunities, assesses the key business capabilities, feasibility, etc., etc. And when the LTSD was settled and our partnership is adhered, so we started to work on MVP prototyping. So we work intensively on this and on architecture as well. And we still have way to go. So MVP, we still have to validate in some parts, and we have as well graduated. And the one big things to go is still, for example, interconnection with our internal systems and scaling it up. So it's always the next big task in this phase.
Right. And, Olga as well, obviously you guys weren't in it alone. You guys had help to help put structure and inform some of your initiatives. How did that process go in your mind? What were some of the key ahas going through some of the blockchain strategy pieces where we start out very deliberately on the key business outcomes and goals and some of the structural things, the legal aspects, etc. Maybe walk me through what that was like for you, what you thought were some of the key aha moments.
So key aha moments was the first thing. I think it was that we have to spend time with legal a lot. To send our joint agreement, etc., how we will work together. It's one of the points. Then, of course, it was the security, and it still stay our challenge. How the security regulation between the both company has to work together and will be well aligned. And the next things, it's as I already said, the integration of various enterprise resource systems.
Right. And so what I'm hearing you say is the aha moments were just being surprised by how many decisions had to be made that were not blockchain decisions.
Exactly. So that actually you have to look into the whole ecosystems, and it's not only architecture, how you will think about it, or only legal stuff. There's a lot, everything around, even the marketing, communication, etc. So everything you have to take into account. You
And I
have
was
to
actually
plan.
surprised, Olga, that you didn't bring up the 100 and some odd page document that I gave you guys. And if you guys were ready for the pop quiz or not.
We can try. So, will you ask by pages or by sentences?
Oh no. And so what we're referring to is essentially we did have a backbone for how to structure these types of initiatives, and one of the vital pieces was forming what we call a ecosystem constitution, which defines all the key business elements that you need to address. And so a lot of those things that Olga just mentioned around getting with the lawyers, the risk managers, the security folks, your line of business heads, and even folks above them, is that it provided some structure around what were the key questions that need to be asked. It didn't tell you prescriptively how you should do everything, but some of the key aspects around formation, the economic model, and all the things that need to go into that, even down to the degree of how should you form a board of directors, and what does that look like when you start to open this up?
And by the way, thank you, Mike, for these documents, because we use it like one of our direction line that we can take a look. Oh, we have forgotten this and that.
Right, the reference manual.
Yeah.
So Andre, you were there from the beginning with me as well. Any comments or ahas going through this process as well?
I totally agree what Olga said. So in the beginning, we struggled with the legal stuff because technology was, in my impression, technology was the easiest part. So we had like 2 days where we had a POC platform running, right? It was like 2 days, wasn't it? Yeah. And it is more the topic of ecosystem, governance structure, stuff like this, which really needs to be thought through a lot. Yeah, you really need time to think about this and work on that.
Yeah.
But Andre, you have to say, as tax folks, we are used to, because each tax planning event starts with a playbook.
Yeah, I didn't say that it is bad. Yeah. But I didn't expect it that. I really expected that the technology part is the hardest part. Really.
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised about that. And I try to let people know that if this was maybe only for your company and your company only, maybe the technology would have been the hardest part. But when you're talking about re-engineering the B2B, the business to business relationships between companies and how they interact, that introduces a whole lot of complexity that oftentimes people aren't ready for. So, Prashanta, from a technology perspective, let's give you some airtime here. You've been way too quiet, so we need to get you talking. I hope you had your coffee this afternoon. So you guys have decided, to go down the Microsoft Azure blockchain service path. Obviously, there's lots of choices in the marketplace to pick a platform. Tell me a little bit more about, why the Azure blockchain service versus something else.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So the thing is that there are a lot of points in my mind, but I would mention a few of them which are really important. One of the biggest point was like kind of Microsoft Azure has reliable and secure services, cloud services, which supports like blockchain applications, and it has various kind of choices in terms of ledger. That was one key point, and it also have it also gives you a support option for managed and unmanaged services, so you can have both choices. And one of our vision is to extend our platform in terms of kind of scalability in terms of our new partners. So we want to design a solution which is like cloud agnostic as well. So blockchain service, which is provided by Azure, has this functionality. So you are not bound to Azure only. If your other partners are having different mindset or different setups, they can have the flexibility. So you have all the choices. That was one of the biggest point, I would say. And apart from that, as Andre was mentioning, that technical part was not difficult because of this. When we started at the early stage, this project, we had this in mind that we need some tangible, like kind of prototype, which we can provide to our business user, where they can have an experience of the platform, and they can have the experience of how the process will look like in future, and how this technology will change, like kind of the way and we do business today, and how it will solve some of the challenges. So we wanted a quick prototype, and Microsoft Azure has this service which is called Blockchain Workbench, which is very good to deploy a blockchain solution in a short time. And it also allows you, like it also provides you user interface. So you don't need to do it separately. You can have the feelings. I mean, you can at least have a tangible prototype. So that was very good start. And another point is that Microsoft Azure team support and services, which are always needed, because it's a new technology. Blockchain is a new technology. You don't know how it might behave, what kind of situation might occur. So that was really helpful in this case. So yeah, I would say these are a few points due to which we decided to go with Azure.
Yeah, Prashanta, I mean, you covered a lot of ground here. And, a couple of clarifying questions for you. So with the Microsoft Azure blockchain service, you got choices as far as not only to be cross-cloud using things like AKS templates, but also you have choices around the ledger itself. And so which blockchain ledger did you guys choose, and why?
Yeah, we initially started like looking, as I said, like we have a great vision, which is to extend our platform and scalability, and a lot of other topics like security, privacy. So then we came across with Hyperledger Fabric. This is our choice. Why we decided it? Because Hyperledger Fabric has a lot of functionality which is mostly, which meets our vision, I would say. In terms of privacy, they have different levels of privacy settings, where and it has a modular architecture where you can have modular functionality and features as an add-on. So you can have different choices on consensus mechanism based on your business requirement. So those are a few points based on which we decided that Hyperledger Fabric is the best choice for our platform.
Yeah, and in Hyperledger Fabric is another area that Microsoft's investing in as well. As you probably already know, there's a lot of active investment to get HLF to be a managed service on Azure Blockchain Service. So that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And some of the things that you talked about as well that I think are important to point out, both from a technical perspective and a business perspective, is regulatory compliance certifications. And what's interesting about, and oh, by the way, this isn't a commercial. This is just the value props scenario. Is Microsoft has an enormous amount of focus on certifying the platform for particular worldwide regulatory compliance needs. Not only from a data sovereignty perspective and making sure we have data centers in key places, but also from a compliance perspective, making sure that I think we're up to 90-ish regulations that we're compliant with worldwide. So it definitely helps to be on a platform that is checking all those boxes with the government, so you guys don't have to do that. You can say, well, the platform I'm writing on supports all this. And I really like that you brought up the Azure Workbench, blockchain Workbench, because that's a really straightforward tool that I think more people should be leveraging, even though it's all POC stuff. It should not be used for production workloads. However, it's a really great way of getting the complete kind of package up and running pretty quickly. On one of the earlier podcasts we did, we talked to GE Aviation, and just like you said, Prashanta, they got a prototype up and running within a couple hours, and it was end to end, and they were able to demo it from Redmond, Washington, to their executive team in Cincinnati, Ohio, later on that day. The hardest part was mapping out the workflow. What is the workflow that we should implement here, and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense? Yeah. And so I guess, last question for you, Prashanta, is, so you mentioned a lot of good things about the platform. Where are some areas where you think there could be some improvement, if any?
Yeah, I would say like improvement in what sense? One point is that we need to, now as we are in the incubation phase, we need to be more careful designing this, like in choice of a lot of things like data models, because it's very important how the future, like you don't know what partner will join and use the platform, right? And that's a big topic, because how they will be using this and how we will be model the data in such a way that some of the data which is not for them, they should not be given access, right? And those kind of things, I would say that we need to take care of a bit. And in terms of scalability, we need to see, like, if new organization or new partner joins, like it was a prototype, but now we are moving to the next phase, and there we need to be very careful and design it properly.
Yeah. And so Prashanta, and maybe even Thomas, how has the onboarding preparations been to onboard customers onto the platform? Was there any surprises or some lessons learned that you can share with people that are either going through this process or will eventually go through this process?
Yeah, I mean, we're following here an agile approach. That means basically first a test customer. And so normally we're already figuring out the difficult things, improve here incrementally. And when we have a good product, then the onboarding process is quite easy because we have already done it. Yeah.
But and of course, question will be, there are a variety of different business models that you can implement some of these ecosystems. And, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just based on, again, the business model that you want to create. And, you guys started off for, to your point, Thomas, for agility's sake, starting in a founder-led mode, which means Siemens and Henkle have all the blockchain nodes in one infrastructure, kind of more as like a software as a service type of implementation. What I understand, though, is the goal is to federate out those nodes and go either into a partnership-driven mode or a full-on industry-driven mode where those nodes may be at each individual company or maybe consolidated within a set of companies. Maybe if you could comment on what that process means to you. And sorry, I heard background noise somewhere, some music. What that process means for you, and how that helps or hurts the onboarding process.
I think one thing is that the Siemens side is basically planning to use it more like a software as a service. And so we currently bring in a partner to basically provide this software as a service for us. Still, we are very strongly involved in the architecture, which is for us quite useful because then we can shape how we would like to use the software as a service. But at the same time, I think Henkle is the perfect partner because they want to run their own node. So basically, at the moment, we have both cases present. And I think that helps us to basically now make our system failure proof in order to onboard many more partners, even with their own nodes or joining us in the easy way as a software as a service contract.
So what you're saying here is essentially you found ways to take the best of both worlds, to one, have a frictionless environment where you can onboard people fairly quickly, in more this, founder-led model where it's kind of that software as a service type of technical model. Or if, companies want their own node, that is an option as well and can be federated out.
Yeah, I think the last part is the most important one. You either can use it as a software as a service model, but this is only working if there are some partners who run their own nodes, because you need some of independent node basically in order to leverage the blockchain. Because if we would control all our nodes, basically we couldn't trust the blockchain.
Yeah.
And so if you're joining us, you have either the chance to run your own node in order to be fully sure that you have the data in your blockchain, or you can use the easy one, basically joining our SaaS model, and then basically trusting that there are always some other partners who run the node. So in case of a problem, basically you can also go to them to validate the data.
Yeah. And, the subtlety that, people that are watching or listening to this is hearing really is that for this ecosystem, there's multiple different components to the ecosystem. There is the governing entity, which from a business perspective sets the tone, the direction, all the major decisions. It's almost like the board of directors for an ecosystem. Second, you've got the actual membership itself. And there will be some members that will have a high degree of value creation within the ecosystem, meaning they have nodes, or there will be more passive type of members within the ecosystem. Now, another thing that we had alluded to is the operations of the ecosystem. And from what I'm hearing the team say here is Siemens and Henkle are actually not operating the framework or the ecosystem. It's being managed by a third party to ensure openness and inclusiveness. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what was the drivers for that really about? Just making sure that this was a non-biased entity in the marketplace?
Yeah, for instance, as we said before, I think to be neutral is one of the really prerequisite. As I mentioned the other initiative before, if you're going to bind your customers, then you have a problem.
Yeah. And so, Olga, what do you think have been some of the top challenges from your perspective, from a technology perspective, and why?
So even if enterprises and regulation, researcher, individual, and we as well fascinated by blockchain technology, it is still not widespread. So it's one of the challenge what we have, especially in enterprise area. And some of architectural patterns have to be adopted for enterprise world. As well, the standardization is still there. So there's a lot in the movement regarding standardization of the technology. And another technology challenge what we are facing here is being prepared to easily integrate or onboard the partners in regards of different and various enterprise systems. Because some of the guys has SAP, some of the guys has Oracle, some of the guys maybe has something else. So, and we would like that more company participate in the solution. So it is stay one of our biggest challenge here.
Gotcha.
To make it happen.
Yeah, and Thomas, we alluded to blockchain isn't the only component in the ecosystem. What are some of the other technical aspects that you had to think through?
Yeah, as Olga already mentioned, we have those challenges that we have to integrate many components. And so one approach we're following is the API first approach. That means for every service which are inside our systems, we provide first an open API specification in order to make it easy to integrate it with other company systems. So that's one thing. Another thing, which is, I think, important in every tech project, is basically in order to make the technology part look easy, you need a common understanding between the domain experts and the tech experts. So first, we basically started in talks to understand what those LTSD is about, because in its core, this project is about digitalizing a paper-based certificate into its digital form. And so after we had those talks, we derived a JSON schema in order to have a representation of this paper document in its digital world. And that's how we start. And then we move on to the blockchain.
Gotcha. So it's really, like you said, it's the API driven approach. Every capability within the solution has an API. Now, with that, from an interoperability perspective, we've got the technical side of just exposing the APIs. And then the other component to that is the data standardization. Were there any standards bodies out there that you guys leveraged common data standards from a taxonomy and ontology perspective?
Unfortunately, we didn't find any standards beside basically this legal template of those LTSD. And that's what we took. And now basically, derived those JSON schema from it. But we were not able to find an already existing standard we could build on.
Gotcha. So, we'll start with you, Thomas, then we'll move to Prashanta. What were, in your mind, some of the key learnings around the DLT, the distributed ledger technologies, and the ledger technologies? This is oftentimes a common question, because that's at the heart of a lot of these decisions is, what ledger do I pick and why? We touched on this a bit with Hyperledger Fabric around the extensibility, it's open source. But were there any surprises when you went in and was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize either this ledger reacted in this way and it made us think about going to another, or, hey, we chose Hyperledger and it's a good thing because I found out this great nugget. So, Thomas, let's start with you and then we'll move to Prashanta.
Yeah, I think at the moment, most ledger technologies has their weaknesses and strengths, and it also it depends how much you want to invest in order to make it happen with this or that ledger. But one thing I think is important is to take into account is GDPR. So I think Hyperledger Fabrics help us to avoid to store certain personal information into the ledger, because this one we would not be able to remove again from the ledger. I mean, that's what blockchain is about. So I think one of the key lessons is really identifies first what is data which is important for GDPR, so that you're clearly aware what kind of data you store in your ledger, and then make sure that you have mechanisms basically to avoid that you have to store this information, that you cannot delete it anymore. Yeah, and I think Hyperledger Fabric can help us here. With it's how it can store hashes basically of this information, so you don't have to store the information itself into the blockchain. But of course, with effort, it's also possible to realize this with other ledger technologies.
Right.
Okay, so from my side, so what I learned is like one of the key challenge in blockchain project, if you know, everybody knows that you also want your competitor to join the ecosystem. It might happen that your competitor joins, right? And then privacy is a big topic here. So how to maintain the privacy of the data and other stuff as well. So when we were looking for the ledgers, there are many ledgers in the market, and we were looking for some ledger which helps us to establish this like open platform. But if we want to share the data, exchange the LTSD, then it should be not a concern for our competitor that their data is getting shared with others or it's available. So but Hyperledger Fabric, which I learned that Hyperledger Fabric has various granular level of privacy settings which are really helpful, and the exercise which brings a new learning when we try to design the solution so that the privacy is maintained. So that was a big learning, I would say, from the exercise.
No, it makes sense. Lots of benefits. What I like about it is the vibrant community around it. And, from an open source perspective, you can see all the new open source projects that are based around, that platform. And so whether it's, decentralized ID with Indy and Sawtooth and other types of projects that are happening right now at the Hyperledger Foundation, it makes it very compelling because there is this vibrant community that says, hey, this might have some staying power in the industry. So, Olga, you've got the difficult job of herding all these cats, as they say. Multiple companies in the industry, a big tech company that's injecting themselves in to try to help. How are you managing all this? What are some of the things that you realized going through this project that was either different than a normal project or maybe just surprised you?
Good question. So the first thing I think, so we have two different companies and you, Mike, as advisor. So this is the third one, I can tell. It's very banally challenges what I face here. The one of it's calendar. The calendar is quickly full. And at Siemens, we had shared one, so I can always take a look at Andre or Thomas' calendar and say, okay, now, guys, we have the time. But it's much more difficult with you or with Henkle. So, and it takes a little bit more time than a normal project to deal with it. And another one, it was to find the guys with blockchain experience. But I was very lucky one, so we have Thomas and Prashanta after some times. And, actually we have really motivating team. So everyone believes in what we are doing, and it's key success factor, I think, in this project. But all in all the challenges make it more interesting. So we enjoy.
Yeah. And so as we're talking about some of these key takeaways, from a business perspective, kind of all up, looking in the rear view mirror, what were some of your key ahas through the process? What would you change if you had to do it over again? Would you approach something differently? And so, Robert, how about you kick us off on that question?
So I think, it's easy. Let's get started. As I said before, we are really down the chain, one of which are not talking about, we are able to execute. And now we have to partner. Yeah. So I think it's a much effort we spent, but we will be only successful if we have partners on board. You know, as I said before, many initiatives are going around the globe, and this should be an international, at least an international treatment of, help with technology, the goods transport. And therefore, we need our suppliers, we need our customers to get on the platform.
Nice. Yeah, it's only as good as the participants. Totally agree. Andre, what about from your perspective?
Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, my microphone is making all that echo noise. That's why I get unmuted. Well, as I said before, the Microsoft technology runs very quickly, but you really have to think on an early stage about the business model, the legal stuff, and the governance structure as well. Yeah, and I can really recommend to start this in an early stage. And the second thing is, what I think is important is to build up a cross-functional team. Having the right persons on tax, on legal, and also on IT experts in your team. And do not forget to involve the people who later on work with that solution, right? So this is really a key success factor, to integrate them into the project and to get them updated all the time and keep them informed. Because at the end, they have to work with this, and of course, you have to design the solution to their needs.
Yeah, and you know, along those lines, Andre, what you're saying is you need a diverse team. You need to make sure these roles are accounted for early and not be reactive, but be proactive with these resources, making sure that you have representation from legal, risk, you know, your business unit heads, the actual end customers themselves, et cetera. You know, I guess, you know, for you, Andre, what would you do differently if you had to do it over again? Would there be things that you would tweak or just do completely differently based on what you know now?
It's hard to say. In the beginning, we had a lot of hurdles because we are two companies in two different towns or regions in Germany, and it's getting much better when we started to make concentrated workshops. Yeah, really concentrated workshops. On one hand side, live, or now during COVID-19, we work virtually. So this is what I would improve, because if you do not set clear goals and milestones, you're doing it beside all the other stuff you have to do. Yeah, yeah. I think that was something that happens to all of us in the beginning, the problem is, if you lose too much speed in such a project, you lose also the confidence from the people that you will ever make it, right?
Yeah.
So don't lose speed. Start more concentrated and focused in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that, Andre, and you know, you're definitely echoing some of the points that Robert made as well about, you know, let's just get going on this thing. But you know, I think the challenge that a lot of folks face whenever they're building these ecosystems is that it does require a lot of diverse skill sets, and
Yes.
and that coordination of those resources is tough, and it requires some very deliberate structure to be able to pull that off in an efficient way. And to your point, Andre, if you are, you know, delayed in one area and it seems like it's just languishing out there, that can, you know, de-incentivize or demotivate some of the folks that are trying to do other things that would build this out. So just keeping all these moving parts together and moving in the right direction is extremely difficult. And I think that's universal, and that's the challenge with these sorts of initiatives, is it just requires very, very strong project management.
Especially when the team is not exclusively working for that project. So each of us has to do his normal job or his daily business or other projects as well. So as I said, really concentrate and focus on certain time frames where you work hard on this together, then having some homework for the next session.
And it's not even just your resources either. It's another company's resources. And like you said, however many miles away, that you've got to coordinate with as well. That makes it even tougher. And that's just 2 companies. Imagine if it was 3, 4, 5, 10, companies, how hard that would be.
Yeah, sure.
So Olga, as the wiring all this stuff together, making sure, to Andre's point, making sure everything is moving in the right direction. Same question to you. What were, just looking back, what were some of those big takeaways that you had from this journey that you've taken creating this ecosystem?
I think one important takeaway was to not to writing the more emails, but put everyone together and working on the workshop. I came into a period where we actually were 1 month before COVID, so I never seen most of the guys in person, so only online, only virtually. And even Prashant, I see the first time on the face today. So actually to put everything on it and to steer it, to make the deadline and to keep it happen. So keep all the time running, because as Andre have already actually said all the points.
Yeah.
That do not lose the time. Start with all important stuff at the beginning and set the deadlines, even if you're working with agile way. So you, even in agile way, you need the timelines and schedules.
So the net of what you're saying is get people together.
Yeah.
So the passive emails are effective for some things, but really, if you want to move this forward, you need to get people together.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't have to be in person, right? It can be a virtual workshop, and we've done that, and that works not as well, but it works.
Yeah.
All right. So, I want to thank all of you guys for spending, the past hour and 20 minutes with me talking about this really, really exciting initiative. I think this is going to be really cool. I think people are going to be really interested. And, with that interest, where should people go to understand either to learn more about this or to even participate? What is the best way for people to get a hold of you guys on this initiative? So I'm going to give it to Olga, since you're the project manager. What's the best way to contact this group of folks?
So actually, we have the email address. So what you can contact us, and it's very easy. It's taxchain.de@siemens.com at the moment.
Perfect. Well, listen, again, thank all of you so much for spending the time out of your busy day and sharing all this great information with everyone. Hope to hear from you guys very soon on your future progress. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Mike, for hosting us. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Quite welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.